Hey, gang, coming up on our Finding Better podcast, I don't care how badly you think you have it. Chances are you've never had it as bad as my guest, Ken Kunken. Years and years ago, decades ago, he suffered a football injury that made him a quadriplegic, basically paralyzed from the neck down. And this was before they even understood spinal cord injuries. And he's here to share his journey of love, of perseverance, of resilience, an amazing, amazing story for us to all be inspired by. If he can live the life that he led, holy smoke, we've got no excuse. Okay? Please share this. Please subscribe. Here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And this is where we share real life experiences of people who have been there and done that. Not theories, not even opinions, but people who have experienced life. Because sometimes the best path to success is to follow in the footsteps of others who have been there and done that and learning from them. My guest today is Ken Kunken. And Ken, welcome to Finding Better. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me as your guest.
Yeah, let me give my audience a little bit of a of your introduction, okay? So listen up, folks. Ken broke his neck playing football for Cornell University back in 1970. That left him almost totally paralyzed from the shoulders down. After a lengthy hospitalization, Ken returned to Cornell, where he completed his undergraduate degree in engineering. Ken, am I right that you are the first quadriplegic to graduate from Cornell?
Yes, that's true.
Wow, what a story. We're going to learn more about this, folks. Ken then earned a Master of Arts degree at Cornell in education, as well as a Master's of Education at Columbia University in psychology. He became nationally certified as a rehabilitation counselor. And as he wanted still more, Ken went on to law school, where he got his law degree and worked for more than 40 years as a Nassau County Assistant District Attorney. Cool. Where he became Deputy Bureau Chief. He's married and father of triplet boys. And we're going to talk about his memoir today. It's called I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story, which was published back in 2023. Ken believes that everyone possesses a certain innate ability that helps him or her function and handle difficult situations. We all possess an inner strength that enable us to rise to the occasion and tackle almost insurmountable odds like Ken did. How that inner strength is used makes the difference between someone who is good and someone who is great. And Ken, can't wait to hear your story.
Thank you, John, and I appreciate the introduction. You mentioned in your introduction that we learn by observing other people who may have gone through
Hmm.
this same experience. When I was injured, I did not know of anybody else who shared my type of injury.
Yeah.
There were no role models back then that I could look to
And
for
folks,
hope or
yeah,
inspiration.
folks, this was 56 years ago, right?
Right?
And the communication like we have today isn't what certainly wasn't like, I mean, we had landline attached phones to the wall. And that's all we had. We
That's
certainly
true.
we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the kind of communication that we have today. And, I mean, that was kind of in the dark ages of technology, right, Ken?
It sure was. It sure was. And my injury was about 25 years before Christopher Reeve's devastating injury. Now,
Wow.
Christopher Reeves became a tremendous role model
Yep.
and shed a lot of light on spinal cord injuries. But when I was injured, I didn't really know of anybody with my type of injury that was out in public doing different things with their lives. My roommates in the rehab center had been hurt longer than I had been, were injured lower down, lower down in their neck than I was, so they had more movement than I
Hmm.
had.
Hmm.
And they didn't seem to be doing much. They all seemed to be just sitting home because, after all, they had a spinal cord injury. Not much seemed to be expecting of people back then.
Isn't that interesting?
Hmm.
So, so you're saying that some of the folks who were with you lived up to the expectations
Or down to them, but
or
that's
down to
true.
them.
The expectations were so low back then. And I might add, John, you mentioned that, but way back then we actually had landlines for telephones. Well, when I was first injured, the medical profession didn't seem to want to tell me too much about my injury or tell me what I could look forward to in the future. But I got a hold of a pamphlet that the rehab center published, and they put out different aspects of spinal cord injury. And one of the things they mentioned that for somebody hurt my level, which is high up in the neck, I'm hurt between the fourth and fifth cervical. They
Hmm.
mentioned that in terms of what type of occupation I could eventually pursue, the only occupation I saw would be someday selling magazine subscriptions over the telephone. So when you
Mm.
mentioned landlines on the telephone,
Yeah.
I could not even dial a
Yeah,
telephone back
yeah,
then.
you couldn't even, right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Let alone pick it up,
there
right?
were no
Yeah.
touch tone phones back then, and I could not dial a phone, take notes, or write anything. So it was a very different time.
Okay, so folks, all right, it's for you young folks out there,
Mhm.
you've heard the term "don't touch that dial."
Mhm.
Okay, look up on the internet,
Mhm.
go to Google Images and look at telephones from 1970. They're not put, there's a dial with numbers on it. And so, I got to tell you, Ken, I've interviewed, I don't know, a couple of hundred people on my podcast, and we talk about finding better, and we talked to I've spoken to people about recovering from losing their job, or recovering from injury, or recovering from a broken relationship. And and I'm not minimizing them, but I heard about your story and I went, holy cow, right? I mean, how do you recover from that and go through? I mean, it's when you fall off the horse, pick yourself up, by the bootstraps and let's go. What was your finding better is at a whole new level, is a whole different level. So tell us about how you, okay, so you're playing football and were you tackled? Were you doing the tackling? What happened?
I was actually playing on Cornell's lightweight football team, and
Okay.
I was hurt in a game against Columbia University. Uh, we were we had just scored and we were kicking off to Columbia. And I ran down the field, tackled the ball carrier. And when I tackled him, I made contact head first, which took all the impact in my neck. So I broke my neck tackling the ball carrier and I
Oh.
instantly became paralyzed. It severely damaged my spinal cord. And not only did I lose all movement, I lost virtually all sensation throughout my body. I have no feeling just a few inches below my shoulders.
Oh my gosh. And of course, football equipment was prehistoric in those days, right? I mean, it didn't have the science of protective equipment that today's football players benefit from, for sure, right?
No, it definitely didn't.
So here you are. I mean, uh, you're probably knocked unconscious, I would imagine.
No, I wasn't. I was actually conscious the whole time.
Oh my
And
gosh, how scary.
yeah, and when the doctors, there was actually more than one doctor at the
Oh
game.
no.
There was
Uh-huh.
the player's father there as well as a doctor from Ithaca, where the injury happened. And they came out on the field, and I could see them looking at me with a perplexed look on their faces. And they asked, "Where does it hurt?" And at the time, I
Oh,
was not initially in a lot deal of pain. I just couldn't move, and I didn't know why. I had never heard of a spinal cord injury before. And John, I might add, one of the strangest sensations is when they put a stretcher under me. lifted me up to carry me off the field. I
Uh-huh.
felt as if I had been decapitated and they were just carrying my head off the field because I had no sensation below my shoulders.
Oh, weird. Oh no. Okay. So, um, then what happened?
Well, they took me to a few different hospitals because the hospital in Ithaca was not equipped to handle my type of injury.
Hmm.
But while I was there, they cut off my uniform. Now, you mentioned how they improved helmets. Well, one of the difficulties was taking off my helmet because it was a very tight-fitting helmet, as football helmets are, and they had to be careful not to move my neck at all because
Right.
that could cause even more injury. So it took about 5 minutes with, I think there were about three nurses or technicians trying to hold my neck and head steady while they kind of inched off the helmet. So just taking off the helmet took a few minutes, which would usually be done in a split second.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they cut off my uniform. They had taken x-rays, so they were not equipped to handle my injury. So they put me back in an ambulance and sent me to another hospital. And by then, the pain really kicked in. And
Oh.
they didn't want to give me anything for the pain. They said I needed to be in full control of my senses when I reached the next hospital and spoke to the doctors there.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So what um what what's going through your mind at this point?
I didn't know what was happening. I thought that it was just the shock of the impact of the tackle. I had heard about a pinched neck, although I never really understood it.
Yeah,
And I thought there must be some type of shock from the impact. It'll wear off in seconds, maybe
right.
minutes the latest. And I jumped back on my feet. And obviously that didn't happen. And the doctors really looked puzzled by my injury, and nobody was really telling me what happened. I later found out that I broke my neck, but they didn't tell me I damaged my spinal cord. So I thought once they fixed the break in my neck, I'd be up on my feet again.
Oh boy. And how long was it? How long was it until you realized the full extent of the damage?
Well, it really took months because I was sent from one hospital to another. I was in a few different hospitals, and I always felt that once I reached the rehab center, which was the Rusk Institute in New York City, they would know what to do and they would get me back on my feet. Now, I didn't go to the Rusk Institute until I had been injured um, more than 3 months by the time I got there. So I still didn't know what the extent of my injury was. I think it was actually 4 months before I got there. And I kept thinking, well, once I get there, they'll be able to help me. And of course, they were not able to restore my movement either.
And during these 4 months, what are you doing? What's happening? I mean, are just what are you thinking? What's going on in your head? I mean, you got
Well,
your whole
one,
life in front of you, right?
that's what I thought. I kept thinking this can't be. I'm only 20 years old. How could this be permanent? I'm only 20 and it was just a game. I kept telling them
Yeah.
it was
Oh
just a
God.
game. And they just weren't giving me much information. So I really didn't know what was happening.
Oh my goodness. So at some point in time, I mean, did you find yourself in depression? Did you find yourself in dark places?
Very much so. I was very depressed for months and months, if not years. Probably
Hmm.
years would be more like it. And I might add that when I was in the hospital, they called up a specialist to look at me and examine me. And I later learned that when the specialist spoke with my family, he told them that I probably wouldn't live through the week. The doctor said that if I was to live, my life expectancy would be between 5 and 9 years, that I would have no movement, I would not be able to do anything, and would probably end up living that amount of time in a nursing home. And the doctor actually said to my family, if he were my son, I would just let him go. That's what my family was told.
You have got to be kidding me.
That's what it was like back then.
Yeah, you mentioned back then. Okay, folks, listen. It was 56 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. You think about it and you go, wow, well, well, he's old, right? Uh, it's only 56 years ago. And we look at our world today and we see all I mean, holy cow, you think about the advancements in medicine and you look at the different tools and the different machines that we have now. And you sit back and you go, wow, Ken lived through a time when they didn't even know what a spinal cord injury was. So it wasn't that long ago, right? And so,
Right.
yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, so let's talk about your memoir. It breaks my heart. I dream of things that never were. I dream of things that never were.
Well, John, let me tell you where I got that title from.
Yeah.
While I was in the rehab facility, 6 months after my injury, I was asked to testify before a United States Health Senate subcommittee chaired by Senator Edward Kennedy. And 8 days
Mm.
after my testimony, Senator Kennedy sent me a glass paperweight in the mail that had an inscription on it that the senator said his late brother Robert Kennedy liked very much. And the inscription read, "Some men see things as they are and say why. I dream of things that never were and say why not." And that's why I got the title of my book,
Hmm.
I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story.
No kidding.
Hmm, hmm.
Well, this podcast is called Finding Better, right? And first of all, you continued to survive for decades, right? So much for that doctor. But um, you know, the stories of resilience, because here's the thing, and this is not to minimize you, obviously, but bad stuff happened to people all the time, right? And we live through life,
Right.
and that's just life. And one of my common themes on this podcast is bouncing back, right? Failure makes you better if you let it, and I know that you have a comment about embracing failure, right? Um, what drove you? You decide, you're now basically, is it proper to call you a quadriplegic, even though
Absolutely.
because you're
That's what I'm
paralyzed in your
considered.
arms and your legs, right?
Right. All four limbs.
Yeah. And so, but you went on to Cornell, you went on to Columbia, you went on to your law degree, you went on to become an assistant district attorney. I mean, what the heck? What happened? What happened from
Okay.
from the depths of depression to moving forward?
I had a very supportive family and group of friends, and they are responsible for everything I did in my life after my injury. I couldn't have done anything without them. I couldn't roll over in bed or scratch an itch or wipe my nose or dress myself or do anything without a lot of help. But I was fortunate that I had tremendously supportive family who
Wow.
basically assured me they would act as my arms and legs if need be to make sure I could still do everything I wanted to do in my life. And it was through their encouragement that I was able to go back to school and do what I eventually did.
Back then, did they have motorized wheelchairs?
They did, but they weren't as developed as they are now. And when I was injured, this was about 20 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act took effect.
Mm-hmm.
So public
Oh
facilities
God, yeah. I'm sorry.
facilities were not wheelchair accessible.
You know,
You couldn't
I
cross the street.
you couldn't cross the street. You couldn't go into buildings with steps,
Right. So,
right?
in fact, when I went back to Cornell, I'd been in the hospital 9 months and 20 days. I was out just 11 days before I decided what I wanted to do was continue my education. So I went back 11 days after I was discharged, and Cornell was probably one of the least accessible campuses I could have picked. Cornell is up in upstate New York. It's on a
Hmm.
very hilly terrain. Virtually every one of its buildings has steps in front of them, and there was not one ramp or curb cut on the entire campus. John, on my first day back at school, I had to be either pulled up or bounced down close to 100 steps just to attend my first day.
And who did that?
Well, I had a personal care attendant that I hired that took care of virtually every one of my needs. But when he wheeled me to class, because I couldn't use my electric wheelchair, fellow students would see me and help pull the chair up or down
Oh,
the
God
steps.
bless him.
And I was
Yeah.
fortunate. I had friends there from my fraternity, from the football team, just people who had heard about me, and everybody was very supportive and tried to think of how they could help me. But I must say, when I got back to my dorm room and had my attendant lie me down in bed, I remember staring at the ceiling, thinking, I must be crazy. What was I doing going back to school so soon after my injury, where I was still trying to get used to what it was like being a quadriplegic, dealing with a very intensive curriculum at a very inaccessible campus. And I remember staring at the ceiling, thinking, what's next? I had no plan B. I didn't know what else I would do unless I made it work at school.
My goodness. My goodness.
Hmm.
Um, so you and I'm looking right now at my notes in terms of a degree in engineering, a master's in education, a master's in education and psychology, a rehabilitation counselor. Uh, wow. So let's talk about going back to I dream of things that never were. What are the kinds of things you dream of that never?
Well, first of all, I dreamt of leading at least a semi-normal life. I kept expecting my physical condition to improve. In
Hmm.
fact, my mindset was actually maybe if I just ignore my injury, it'll somehow go away. So I tried to pick up my life and do whatever I was doing before my injury and try and see if I could lead the same type of life. And I guess it wasn't really accepting my injury as it was, but that's how I tried to motivate myself. Um, I might add, John, that I was a very motivated individual before my injury.
Hmm.
You don't go to Cornell, study engineering, play a sport at the same time, and not be highly motivated.
Hmm.
What I had to certainly work very hard on is not letting my injury keep me from remaining motivated, and that was quite a challenge.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about mindset. Okay. Because, like I said, life is full of tragedy. In your case, uh, that's on steroids, obviously, right? But oh my gosh, what is a mindset? What for people to learn, including me, for you to have survived and thrived as a quadriplegic, what was your mindset?
Well, let me just go back one thing first in terms of quotes. I always thought of the quote by John Lennon, life is just what happens to you while you're busy making other plans.
Say that
Well,
again.
life is just what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. Well, that's certainly what happened to me. But my mindset, not to disappoint my family. They were working so hard
Oh,
to help me every way they could. And as I said, they basically assured me they would act as my arms and legs if need be to make sure I could still do everything I wanted to do. And they were working so hard to help that happen. I felt if I didn't do everything I could do to make something of my life, I would be disappointing them, and I never wanted to disappoint them.
that is a motivator, right? Not wanting to let
Right,
let the people you love down.
right,
And right?
right. Absolutely.
So,
Well, let me add, John, let me add, while I had a very significant physical disability, fortunately, it didn't affect me intellectually. Mentally, it didn't affect me. And my family kept assuring me, you have to make the most of your intellectual ability now. You have to strive to make the most of that, get back to school, so that you could still be a productive member of society.
Wow. And here you are. You're a lawyer, you're an engineer, you're a rehabilitation counselor. You were an assistant district attorney. Holy cow, right?
Right. Well, I had a lot of people helping me, as I said. But when I went back in engineering, it was clear that was not the right field for me. I mean, I had difficulty with those studies before my injury, but
Hmm.
now it was far more difficult. And this was well before the age of laptop computers.
Yeah.
So trying to function as an engineer was extremely difficult. But I had taken an elective in psychology, and my psychology professor took an interest in me and suggested I pursue a career in psychology and counseling because at least I thought that involved mostly talking with people, which I could still do.
Hmm.
So that's why I stayed on at Cornell and pursued a master's degree in counseling and student personnel administration. And I became the first quadriplegic to ever earn a graduate degree at Cornell. And then to increase my counseling credentials, I went to Columbia University, which coincidentally was the school I was injured playing against.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say early on.
yeah,
I was gonna say
right.
early on they injured you
Yeah.
and you decided to go to school there.
And I earned my second master's degree. This one was in psychological counseling and rehabilitation. And I might add that my first day starting at Columbia, I met with my advisor who told me that despite what they teach there, even people in the rehabilitation field would be hesitant to ever hire me to work because of my disability. So that was very frustrating and depressing as well. But I went on, earned that second master's degree. Now, think about this, John. And this is now in the mid 70s. I had two degrees from Cornell, one from Columbia, three prestigious Ivy League degrees, two master's degrees, and no one would hire me. I mailed out more than 100 resumes and looked for a job for a year. It seemed everybody felt I was just too disabled to work. I was even turned down when I offered to volunteer my services. Everybody seemed to feel I was even too disabled to help anybody at that point. But I
My
was
goodness.
fortunate that I found one organization willing to give me that opportunity. That organization was Abilities Incorporated, which was part of what's now called the Viscardi Center after its founder, Dr. Henry Viscardi Jr. This is on Long Island, and Dr. Viscardi himself had a disability, and he hired me to work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor to counsel other individuals with disabilities. And that changed my life. John,
No
now for the
kidding.
first time in years, I was in a position where I could help others.
Ah,
And what a great feeling that is to finally be able to know you could still make a difference in people's lives and help others. And I loved working there. Can you just give me a drink? Excuse me.
that is amazing. And I would imagine, especially after all those years of probably feeling like a burden, not wanting to disappoint people.
Very much.
All of a sudden you're able to help others.
Very much. It made an enormous difference. It improved my self-confidence, my feelings of self-esteem and self-worth, and gave me the motivation to say, there's still more I can do.
I
They,
Go ahead.
well, they gave me a lot of different responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities was speaking to groups and organizations concerning affirmative action and non-discrimination for people with disabilities. And often after my talks, I would be asked questions. And while I would certainly do my best to respond appropriately, I was always careful to caution the questioners they should really consult with a lawyer about their concern.
Hmm.
And I guess it didn't take long before I started to think, there's no reason why I couldn't become that lawyer, right? I had a brother who was a
Yeah.
lawyer at the time. I used to watch him in court and say, I think that's something I could do. So I decided to leave that job and go to law school. But I might add that when I was working at the Viscardi Center, they taught me how to function in an office, how to get a phone set up that was attached to a long Alexa arm to keep the receiver by my ear, how to set up a desk and handle paperwork. And that was such an eye opener, but it really changed my life and made me obviously far more employable. And while I was in law school, I did an internship at the district attorney's office, and I loved that job. And I found a new way that I could help people. Here I was helping victims of crimes. So I decided that's what I wanted to do when I graduated. And I was fortunate that when I applied for a full-time job with the Nassau County District Attorney's Office, the district attorney at the time, a person by the name of Dennis Dillon, placed his hiring decision on my abilities rather than my disability. And I might add, I'm the first quadriplegic to ever work as an assistant district attorney on Long Island. So I always thought it took a lot of guts on their part to give me that opportunity when they hadn't seen other people doing that in the past. So I owe them a lot as well.
What do you say to people, Ken? What do you say to people who are who are down and out, who are in a dark place, who
Well,
who
there are
are
a number of
trying to
things,
find
John.
trying to find a way out?
First of all, never give up. You know, we always go to those dark places. Some places are darker than others,
Hmm.
but there's an awful lot everybody can still do if given the opportunity and keeping that motivation to do more with their lives. And there are a lot of people out there that are ready, willing, and able to help you. If you show them you want to help others and you want to make the most of your situation, there are people that will help you do it. And if you ever have the chance to help others, that will totally change the way you feel about yourself and what you're going through. So never give up. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to people that tell you it's just too difficult or you can't do something or that it's just too hard. What's important is how you feel about yourself and that the motivation that you determine you're going to strive to continue is what makes all the difference.
There is a quote in here somewhere
Yes, sir.
about how helping others shows the value in yourself.
Right.
Right? I'm writing this down. And those are, to me, helping others shows the value of yourself. It's we one of the things. Service to others is an amazing thing. My whole life is wrapped around that. I believe that we all share a common purpose to make do what we can to make the world better than the day we landed on it, and we do that by serving others. And to those folks who are out there who are trying to find themselves out of those dark places, helping others is that light.
John, let me tell you something that I don't believe you know about my life.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, my mother died when I was less than a month old.
Mm.
It was in 1950. It was during the polio epidemic. She contracted polio and died when I was less than a month old. In fact, my older brother Steve had polio at the time as well, but he fortunately fully recovered. But my family bonded together and banded together and did everything they could to help us, right? I'm talking about my extended family.
Hmm.
And that made all the difference in the world to my immediate family. So I grew up seeing the importance of family and the need, the benefit, and the importance of helping others and what a difference that makes in people's lives. So, however you could help, whether it be in tutoring somebody in school or physically, helping somebody do something or just being there as a sounding board, whatever you can do to help others will not only help others and make you feel better about yourself, it's what the world is all about. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what we're here for, right? To make it better for everybody.
Yeah. And we need so much more of it, right? And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be Superman to help somebody, right? Just help somebody cross the street or hold the door open for them when they're struggling,
Absolutely. And,
you
of course,
know?
you mentioned Superman, and he was portrayed by Christopher Reeve, the
Yeah.
actor, who
Yeah.
unfortunately had the spinal cord injury. And he became a tremendous role model for all of us. Coincidentally, Christopher Reeve was a freshman at Cornell the time I had my injury.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, total coincidence.
Seriously.
Mm, mm,
Wow. So for those of you who don't know Christopher Reeve, he played Superman, and he was arguably, I think he is, at least in my life, the most famous Superman. Um,
right,
famous person who played Superman, and he was riding a horse and he fell off his horse. And when he fell off his horse, he landed and broke his spinal column and became a quadriplegic. So here, imagine, I mean, here's this man. I mean, everybody's vision of this man was Superman, and now he's a quadriplegic. It was one of those moments that shocked the world, but it also brought tremendous visibility to spinal cord injuries,
right.
right?
He did an awful lot to shed light on it and to
Yeah.
encourage others that there's a lot you can still do. I
Yeah.
found him to be a tremendous role model.
So what is the what in your going back to your memoir, I Dream of Things That Never Were. What do you first of all, where can people find that?
Okay, well, if they go to my website, which is kenkunken.com, it's my name, kenkunken.com, that will tell them a number of ways they could find my book. Certainly, it's available on Amazon,
There you
but
go.
I might add that it's available not only in the hardcover version, but in an ebook, as well as in an audiobook that I narrated and that my son Timothy actually controlled the recording for it.
Okay. Okay. What 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 do you want people to take from your book, from your memoir?
Well, one, that somebody with a disability is just like everybody else. We all have the same basic needs, wants, and desires. We all want to achieve a useful, productive, rewarding, and happy life. Sometimes we need some additional help in order to be able to get there. But please don't put obstacles in our way. You know,
Mm,
these days I see, for some reason, our current administration seems to have a negative impression of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I don't think they fully realize or comprehend the benefits DEI offers to all of us. You know, a more diverse society that's more equitable, that includes everyone in it, such as somebody with a disability, is better for everyone. In fact, America used to be called the Great Melting Pot.
hmm.
You know, we
Right.
benefit by that diversity. And I might add that when I was working at the district attorney's office, when you leave that job, you go through an exit interview. And during the exit interview, you tell somebody in personnel what you like best about the job, what you thought could be improved. And I'm so proud and happy to hear that on many occasions, the assistant district attorney, when they were leaving, said one of the best parts of their job was meeting, working with, and getting to know me. And the reason why they said that, I'm convinced, is because unless they had a close relative with a disability, they very rarely ever came in contact on a daily basis with somebody with a significant disability. And it really opened their eyes. And they said it helped inspire and motivate them to do a better job and appreciate more what everybody is going through. And I think that's so important.
No kidding. No
Mm,
kidding. Boy, you couldn't have said it better. And the it occurred to me when you said people with disabilities, right? Folks, people with disabilities are people, right? They're people. They're people. Just like you and me. And sometimes they might need different kinds of help. Who doesn't need help, right? And Ken, I mean, you are such an inspiration. And I hope you don't take this as being rude, but I mean, you're a quadriplegic. You can't use your arms, you can't use your legs. And here you are. Who Name me somebody who's got more to complain about than you, right?
John, I have an awful lot to be thankful for as well.
And let's
And
talk about that.
okay, well, if you'd like me to start,
Yep.
uh, I have the most incredible personal life that anybody can hope to lead. I mean, we covered a bit about my educational background, my work history, but my personal life is absolutely incredible. Sitting next to me, just off camera, is my wonderful, incredible wife, Anna, who has made such a difference in my life.
Okay, everybody. One, two, three. Hi, Anna.
And, when Anna and I first talked about getting married, and by the way, we got married in 2003, which was 33 years after my injury. Anna surprised me by saying she wanted to have my baby, and not just a baby, my baby. Now, picture this. I had been paralyzed for more than 30 years, and I was already in my 50s. I
Okay,
mean, it's
do
like,
you really want us to picture this?
yeah, I mean, is she crazy to do that? But, we thought about it and we decided we'll look into various options, including in vitro fertilization. And we're excited to learn it still might be possible for someone in my condition to father a child. So we pursued it, and through the miracle of science, Anna became pregnant. Now, John, I want you to picture this. On January 24th, 2005, I was present in the delivery room. Picture this. I was present in the delivery room when my wife, Anna, gave birth to triplets. Triplets.
That is amazing.
We have three wonderful, 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 gorgeous sons, Joey, Jimmy, and Timmy. They're now 21 years old. They're about to start their senior year in three separate colleges in upstate New York, pursuing three different majors. They are the light of my eye, the love of my life, and doing exceptionally great. And John, I am leading a very happy life.
That is wonderful. Anna, God bless you. I've got two kids and three grandkids, but they all came out one at a time. I can't, thinking about three at the same time is just unfathomable to most people. And
John, I was in
you
my
guys did
50s. I didn't have any time to waste at that. I
it.
had
Yeah.
to do it all at
Let's do
once.
all three of them right
Right.
away. That's great. That's wonderful.
Mm.
All right, Ken, listen. What do you want to leave my audience with?
Well, one, there's an awful lot everybody can do if given the opportunity. And when we work together, everybody can achieve so much more than when everybody's left on their own. So never give up, never stop fighting, never stop trying to help people, and participate whenever you can. Don't just sit back on the sidelines waiting for something to happen. Good things come to you when you work for them. And it's only when you're actively involved that you have control over the outcome.
My goodness, what a way to close. What a way to close. And folks, Ken's book, his memoir, I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. That's Kunken. All right. And if I may make a closing statement, and then we can talk about it if you like. But you talked about being grateful after all you've been through and after all you went through, and still you live a life with gratitude. Um, there's going back to there's a lot of people who haven't experienced, the kind of tragedy that you had, and yet you are great. I can tell you are grateful every day of your life.
I sure am.
And folks, that gratitude, if you just look around, I've spoken with people who said I have nothing to be grateful for. I don't deserve to be grateful. My daughter said that
Hmm.
when she was suffering from in the depths of an eating disorder. She told me, she says, I don't deserve to be grateful. And it took her a long time. It took her a long time to realize that she's got the world to be grateful for, but she had to recover. And folks, gratitude is amazing. Amazing. I every night, every day, every time I can think of it, I say this. I'm a Christian, and I say, Lord, thank you for you. Thank you for me. Thank you for my wife and my family. Thank you for my health, and thank you for your angels, because I know they're always with us. And I'll tell you, I know that that little prayer uh, has made miracles happen every day of my life. It's all about gratitude.
All right.
Ken, my goodness, thank you for joining me. And thank you for sharing a small part of your life with my audience because
Thank you, John.
everybody's looking to find better. And like we said, bad stuff happens to us all the time. Accept it, dust yourself off, and move on, right? In
Right.
Ken's case, blow the dust off. How's that something for you to leave with, right?
Great. I'll have to remember that line.
All right. Well, listen, Ken, thank you again. Ladies and gentlemen, again, his memoir is I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. You can get it on Amazon or you can go to kenkunken.com. Ken, I love you. God bless you. Thank you for joining me. Folks, I love you. God bless you. Please share this story. Talk about inspiration. You know somebody in your life needs to hear Ken's story. Okay? And please subscribe because it helps us get these messages of love out there. So with that, I think I might have said this already, but I'll say it again. I love you. God bless you. Thank you again for coming, and we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.